Hello and welcome to EVN Report. This is a special podcast, audio article, audio commentary with Sheila Paylan. She is the author of Unleashed, a special column we have on EVN Report. Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you.
We decided to change it up this time and ask you not to read your article, but instead have a discussion because this week's column, which is called 1 Year Down, is the first anniversary of the column that we launched with you. And I can't believe when you told me this morning, it was like, it's been a year?
Yeah.
I feel like it's only been 6 months. Talk to me, Sheila, about why Unleashed?
Well, mainly because you asked me to do this. And I was like, I thought you were joking when you first asked me. I remember you saying over dinner one night, I have a dream that we'll have a columnist. Like you didn't have any, EVN didn't have any at the time. And I was like, oh, that's such a great dream. You should totally go for it. And you're looking at me like, I mean you. So I thought, who would want to read me regularly, like that regularly? Because I think we were talking about every week.
Yeah.
And at the time, my writing was very legal, analytical.
Clinical, almost.
Yeah. And that's fine. But I was like, I don't see that happening every week. So, and also for me to be able to sustain it, I wanted it to be something a little different and motivating, inspiring, and also get really down to the basics of what is human rights all about? Why am I even saying these things? Why am I trying to convince anyone to believe in this? I just remember the word unleashed coming to me at some point. I'm like, okay, that's a good start. I never would have imagined that it would be what it is today. Like I couldn't imagine it then. It was like one article at a time and snowballed into what it is now.
Yeah, because at EVN we do a lot of heavy pieces, and that is absolutely conditioned by the circumstances in which we live.
Yeah.
Especially after 2020, after 2023, we do a lot on security, on foreign policy, and war, and Aliyev, and Russia, and I felt. We're all exhausted by that. And sometimes you need to see the light. And that's sort of been my trajectory in life as a journalist and an editor is that, yes, we report on the news. Yes, we, try to hold people accountable. But there always has to be a little bit of hope at the end, because at the end of the day, we're people and we need to have that hope. And we also connect on a human level.
Yeah.
We can do all the analysis and everything. And that's very, very important, very critical to our understanding of everything from, as I said, security to, democracy to the armed forces. But at the same time, we need that breath. And I felt that.
That's the fuel, though. That's
Sure.
the fuel that keeps us going, because these are very delayed gratification type issues that we deal with. And, one person said to me once, and it kind of hurt, but they were like, what are you doing? You're just writing articles. And I was like, oh well, thanks. But, that actually helps. And can we all just encourage each other instead of knock each other down?
We've lost that ability, I fear. And when you broadcast to the world in whatever format it is, in whatever medium, there will always be pushback from certain people.
Yeah.
But at least you had the courage to do it.
Well, I had a lot of support as well, like not just from the readers, but especially you. And here at EVN Report, it's like a family, and it's just been so good for me to be in this safe space. I've published in many places, and I've never had like a terrible experience, but it can be disappointing sometimes when you're really happy with a piece of work and it gets like
rejected or massacred.
Rejected, sure, that's like par for the course, but massacred or ripped apart, and then it's okay, it's fine because that's the venue or the platform, but here you've given me so much freedom, and that's what I'm writing about, but I'm also getting that freedom back, and it's really, really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Sheila, because, we have very few writers. We have to be very honest about that. We have a lot of journalists, but do we have a lot of writers who can really write? And oftentimes I've seen people like yourself who, you're an international human rights lawyer, you have extensive experience and you write for foreign policy and for The Economist or whatever, different global outlets, and that is very important, right? But I've had this conversation with many people like yourself who will say, I submitted a piece to whatever platform, and it was massacred, or they changed the headline, or they changed, they wanted me to write shusha instead of shushi, and stuff like this. And I keep saying, use our platform to say what you want to say. We will not editorialize. We will not, unless it's something that's crazy.
No, sometimes, I'm glad you caught some things where you're like, do we have to talk about your divorce and everything?
I know, like, how many times do I have
you're
to read
right.
about your marriages, right? So I want to be honest with you, because
it's fair.
I put myself in place of the reader as well.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And, it's not everybody's cup of tea. What you write, what Olesia writes, what, Christopher now Atamian is writing, or Nerses Kopalian and his security briefings, right? Because that's also a regular thing on our platform. Not everybody will agree, and it's not everybody's cup of tea or whatever it is, but there is a readership out there who's who wants to really understand what life in Armenia is, and how you see things, not only in Armenia, but also from a global perspective.
Yeah. And I'm really happy that I can also have a place, at the beginning it was Instagram, to just post a lot of photos of my time in Armenia and how much I was loving it. And I was being dubbed a bit the unofficial ambassador of tour, like, to get people to love it. This is a much more careful, like, it's a place where I can more carefully curate what I want to say about Armenia and how much I love it. And I'm, so surprised at how many people read this. People I don't know. Like, I've had my moment where more than one, I think like at least 4 or 5 times someone has stopped me and said, "Are you Sheila Paylan? I read your column." And I was like, I have to give you a hug right now.
It's an interesting thing, because, I've had people write for UVN Report who are not Armenian, or Armenian, doesn't matter, who have written, on multiple outlets. And I got a note just a couple of days ago from one of our writers, and he said, it's really weird. I've only written for you twice, and already 2 times, because of that article, I've got an invitation to do this, or I've been called to another TV station to talk about it. And sometimes here we don't understand the impact, or we don't understand sort of the scope of readers from all over the world. And so, speaking of which, let's talk about Noli Mitangare. And Chris, who's our podcast producer and producer in general, is smiling because he pulled the numbers. And that article just got...
I'm surprised as well.
Yeah.
Well,
tell the folks who haven't read it what it's about, first of all.
It's about a tattoo that I got, sorry to say, after my first divorce.
Do we have to talk about the divorce?
No, we don't have to talk about that. But it's also one of my favorite books that I read by Jose Rizal, Noli Me Tangere, a Filipino freedom fighter. And so the tattoo symbolizes transcendence. It's an utterance by Jesus when he resurrected. And it was the first tattoo I got on my arm, which was also really brave of me, because everyone was like, well, that's on your arm. Like,
it's visible.
You can't hide. Yeah. And anyway, I was like, calm down. It's okay. I'm just as good a lawyer as I was without the tattoo. And
you mean it didn't affect your brain or anything?
No, like surprising. Yeah. I think the term is probably Googled a lot by Filipinos, by
people who
by
want the
Christians,
tattoo,
by what is this? Yeah, and I don't know if it's a very common tattoo, but whenever
it certainly garnered a lot of attention for sure.
Yeah, whenever I meet anyone from the Philippines, I just put my hand up and they freak out because it's required reading. Yeah. But I loved that piece. I actually really loved that piece. And even I didn't realize how important the tattoo was for me until I wrote that piece,
Yeah, because it is a cathartic experience. When you sort of put pen to paper, I wish we put pen to paper, but,
I do.
A lot of people don't. When you put pen to paper, a lot of things sort of intrinsically flow. And it's a process of self-realization and understanding who you are, your place in the world. And I think a lot of your articles in your column are like that. They resonate with people because we all go through those experiences and for that search as well. But what would you say is your most favorite piece that you've written?
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint one. Like, I think I always fall back to Wake Dragon because it was my first one. And yeah, it was like the percolation of a couple of years of why did I move to Armenia? What is going on? It was a massive change for me. And I guess it's like the Cannonball article, which just propelled me. Like, I was already there, but to be able to express it, and I never did a personal reading of it, but I read it at the author reading at last year's media festival.
That's right.
And oh my God, I was like gonna cry reading it out loud, because every time I read it, I think I'll say it's not necessarily my favorite, but it's one that I go and reread a lot myself, you know, and I'm like, oh, I'm proud of you, you know, I'm proud of myself for writing that.
What has been the greatest challenge in writing so regularly and being very raw and authentic and honest? Are there any boundaries for you?
Well, of course I have boundaries. I write about boundaries too, but I try to break them. And I think, well, one main challenge, which I've kind of overcome, but is the regularity of it, to have to come up with new content every other week. So we settled on that eventually. But it's become easier, you know, and then like the hardest thing I think is the imposter syndrome, or the fear that it's not going to be good, or this is, I really try to avoid being repetitive. Sometimes that happens, like with the divorce, but with other things too, it's okay. Like themes can come back in. And
I remember our conversation when you were saying, but what can I write about like every week or every second week? But I think we fail to see, not you, but in general, we fail to see the multitude or the abundance of stories around us.
Yeah.
And just in the course of a day living in Yerevan, or, you know, wherever you are in Armenia, if you just stop and think at the end of the day of all the experiences you've had, you could write volumes, seriously.
Yeah. But you helped me with that, because you were saying how, you know, it could be one small story, one little event. And I like that, you know, some pieces are more storytelling, others are more political, or, you know, manifesto-like. Others are more trying to be a little bit more motivational. And also some are like in the moment. This is what's, you know, Fires and Fascists was something.
Yeah.
I had another idea, but I'm like, no, that's not the moment. And right now we're going to talk about this, and still try to keep it within the theme of Unleashed. Yeah. So it's more fun than challenging. Finally.
Challenging can be fun too.
No, it's challenging. I'm not saying it's not. It is.
For anybody thinking about doing it.
Yeah. I'm trying to be more... I'm trying to let myself be more descriptive and storytelling like than sort of fact based, you know.
Yeah, because that's what you do in your other life, and this gives you the space to explore. And I think it's also important for us to try to understand the human condition.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what we are. We're all humans, and regardless of geography and circumstance.
And yeah, making yourself vulnerable. Like I've shared some super private things, things I never thought I would ever share with, like I barely share it with people one-on-one, you know. But I said, this is important. And I remember with Let There Be Dark, I was scared. I was like, this is probably not a good idea. And then it ended up being a great idea. And I felt even released somehow and relieved. And I know that there are people reading it that will be supported by it. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, Sheila, thank you for letting us co-opt your reading.
Thank you so much for letting me be here and giving me this space.
Well, we look forward to the next year.